Well, guys, summer TV may be over, and before we head into the madness that is fall TV, there is still one order of business to take care of.
Don't change the channel, don't touch that dial. We got it all on UHF. Take off the sneakers.
Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my top 5 summer shows of 2018. As you guys know, I did this last year, and while I didn't see as many shows this summer that I typically do, I still think I saw a fair amount where I'm able to do a top 5. Definitely not a top 10. I definitely did not see enough for that, but I definitely did see enough for a top 5 overall. I'm not going to get into this that much. I will say this was a decent summer for TV. There was definitely some stuff that I really did enjoy overall. There are still some things that I do need to finish, and that really does go into my honorable mentions. Now, even though, like I said, I did not really watch a lot of TV, there are some things that I did, in fact, start. Most of this honorable mention section is comprised of things that I haven't seen enough episodes of for me to, feel like I'm judging it fairly. So, for that reason, they're not in the top 10. And the first one, and this pains me to say, I've only seen one episode of this, but unfortunately, I just have not been able to see the rest, and that's The Sinner, Season 2 of The Sinner. I know I did this last year. I'm gonna watch more. It's Carrie Coon. Obviously, I'm going to watch more solely just for her in general, but what I saw, I fucking loved this first episode. I love the direction they're going in. It's much more focused on the effect that, parenting has on children and things like that, and why children would kill their parents and the motive and things like that. I'm very interested in getting into all of that. The cast here is fantastic. Natalie Paul, Carrie Coon, Tracy Letts, Bill Pullman, you name it, honestly. This cast is honestly stacked this season. Again, I really did want to put this on the list, but I've only seen one episode of it. I'm definitely going to watch some more before the season does end. Don't worry, but I did watch the first episode, and I definitely do want to see more very soon. Same with the next one. I really did want to see more of the season, but I just unfortunately have not been able to, and that is Season 4 of Better Call Saul. The first 2 episodes of this have been absolutely spectacular. It has been a lot darker. It's been Breaking Bad levels of dark at points, very much getting into, the regrets and sort of the guilt that Jimmy has towards Chuck's death and things like that, but also really getting into more of who Gus Fring really was, and him and Mike Ehrmantraut's story is getting a lot more interesting. And again, what I saw, I really am loving this season. I just need to see more of it in order for me to put it on the list. What I have seen, it absolutely would qualify for sure, but unfortunately I just did not see enough of it, and that's why that one's not there either. And then these last 2 were so close to making the list. In fact, I would have done a top 7, but I felt like it just only made sense to do a top 5 since I did one last year. So like I said, this is in fact a top 7. The first one is, and this one, like I said, I really was hoping this would be on the top 5, but unfortunately it wasn't. And that is probably the most surprising show of the entire year for me. That's Cobra Kai. I was expecting nothing from this show. I didn't have it on my anticipated list because I didn't think it looked very good. I wasn't even a fan of really the first 2 episodes. I got to see them in theaters, and I wasn't really a fan of them, but it picked up real quick, and it did such a great job of obviously paying tribute to the show, but not trying to make the show chock full of nostalgia and not just trying to cater the show towards that audience. It ushered in, I think, a new audience that wasn't really there from the original films. It gave us more layers to both Jimmy, to both, to both of the characters here, to Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso. Johnny Lawrence being the best character of this entire thing for sure. The stakes were much higher. The emotion was really good. It was really funny at points. You really care about the relationship between, of course, Johnny and Miguel. Just a really great show overall. I never really thought I would say that YouTube Red had one of the most surprising shows of the year, but I think they finally had a hit. I've always kind of joked about YouTube Red and said, oh, they're just the wannabe Netflix, but after Cobra Kai and another show I do need to watch, Impulse, I genuinely do think they have something going for them, and I really do hope that the show does not fall off the rails, because season 1, like I said, was incredibly surprising, and that definitely is an honorable mention. And then this one was literally number 6. Like, if I had to put this one, it would literally be number 6. It was my most anticipated show of the summer. That was Patrick Melrose. It didn't make the top 5, but that doesn't mean it still isn't fantastic, because it absolutely is. I mean, this show just did such a great job of painting a very raw portrayal of someone who has gone through both physical and mental abuse, and also how they try to kick their habits of drug addiction and alcoholism, and they did a very good job with that. Benedict Cumberbatch, I think, gave the performance of his career. It's the show that, unfortunately, no one really talked about this summer, and that definitely disappointed me. I think the show really did have all the ingredients to make a really great miniseries. And sure, could it maybe have delved into some things a little bit more? Maybe they could have added like 1 or 2 episodes, absolutely, but for the most part, Patrick Melrose did give me what I wanted out of it, and it was definitely very close to making the top 5, but either way, honorable mentions are out of the way. Let's get into the top 5. Alright, so coming into number 5, we have a show that a lot of people were hoping that I would talk about, and now it's finally here. Yes, I know. I left Castle Rock off the list. I got so many, after I did that top 10 anticipated video, everyone was like, where's Castle Rock? Where's Castle Rock? Well, guys, you have to understand, I did that video before Castle Rock was initially announced to come out in the summer. I thought it wasn't going to come out until the fall, which is why I didn't put it on the list. But nevertheless, this is a fantastic show. I think Castle Rock has done such a great job with retaining, obviously, that very eerie sort of spirit that most of Stephen King's novels do have, really kind of building on the story. The world building has been really great, I think, but also telling its own story. It's doing its own thing, and I think that really is just benefiting it overall. It's got a stellar cast from Andre Holland to Sissy Spacek to Jane Levy to, of course, Bill Skarsgård. I mean, everyone is so well casted on this show. It has this very creepy nature, and after every episode ends, it's one of those shows you just want to dissect more into. It's always throwing things at you. You guys know me. I love a really good mystery, but I also love a really great horror series, and of the 4 episodes I've seen, this show is definitely living up to its promise. I am very excited to see where the rest of the show does really go. I almost put this as an honorable mention, but I recently watched the 4th episode, and that really did bump it up for me. This show has tons of potential, and I'm hoping of what I've seen that it really does continue to deliver on it, and for that reason alone, Castle Rock is my number 5. So number 4 is another show that for me was a huge surprise this summer. I was hoping it'd be good, and it was better than I ever could have imagined, and of course that is...
The category is... Live, work,
As you guys know, I have a very love-hate relationship when it comes to Ryan Murphy. I think he really is a creative genius, and I think he has a lot of really great ideas, but I think he's so creative and he thinks deep into everything that a lot of the times he gets very fragmented with his work, and it feels very haphazard with his editing, and especially things that aren't based on a true story. They tend to be kind of convoluted. He's gotten a bit better in recent years, but that's been the problem with many of his shows, and I was very worried that Pose would fall into that same category, and that was not the case at all. This show was absolutely phenomenal. It did a really great job at giving a very raw portrayal of who these people really were. Even though they're not based on real characters, they very much feel that way. You feel like these characters could be ripped right out of the 80s, but also getting into the struggles with being trans, being gay, just being different at this point, how that wasn't really accepted by then, was such a sort of umbrella topic at that point, and You really do, of course, get into that more. I thought the writing was just excellent. I love the scenes at the ball and the actors that were in this show. You know, I think Murphy he ushered in so much great new talent, and I'm very excited to see where the show does go in Season 2. Pose, like I said, was a huge surprise for me. I was not expecting the show to be nearly as good as it really was, and it was honestly way better than I ever could have imagined. Sure, it did have a few plot points that didn't really need to be there, but I absolutely loved it. I think it's one of the best things Ryan Murphy has done in quite some time. I think this definitely could be the next hit show for him. It absolutely has. I think definitely it's going to get a lot of nominations and things like that. But Pose, it was a fantastic show on, you know, another great hit from FX for sure. It shows that Ryan Murphy definitely still has his shit together. And for that reason alone, it is number 4. Now, number 3 is a show that I think was a big anticipated hit for everyone, and of course, it is... Glow Season 2 had a lot to live up to. Of course, after Season 1 being the show on Netflix that kind of just quietly dropped, it didn't really have a ton of hype behind it, but after everyone was talking about it, they loved the characters, they loved how well it paid tribute to the 80s, they loved what it had to say about all these women, they just really loved the show, and a lot of people were fearing, including myself, that Season 2 was not going to live up to its promise, that Season 2 was going to be a retread, and it was honestly even better than I think it could have been. Not only did it do such a great job of showing us who these people are, diving more into the secondary characters, but also really deepening the conflicts, getting more into these women getting too comfortable and the impact it really has on them, both in, you know, their popularity, the way they're perceived by certain people, the way that others perceive them, the struggles that they have along the way. I mean, there were so many things Glow got into this season that was so great. They really were firing on all cylinders this season, including that brilliant episode where it is just one consecutive episode of Glow, and there's, you know, just that episode alone, there's so many great Easter eggs, and if you watch one TV episode, I think this summer TV season, it should be that one. Like, honestly, I would recommend that as a standalone episode to people who haven't even seen Glow, because it's just that great of an episode, and there's so many things that I could have talked about there. But Glow Season 2 absolutely lived up to its promise. I know it's in the same exact spot as it was last year, but it really is that great. It really is one of the most entertaining shows on TV. It has one of the best ensembles, and while I don't think it was quite as strong as Season 1, it definitely still was a fantastic season. It reminded me why I love the show. It continues to be one of the best shows for Netflix for sure, one of the biggest surprises for Netflix for sure, and for all those reasons alone, it definitely deserves to be at number 3. Alright, so number 2 and number 1, these two were neck and neck, honestly. For a while, this show was number 1, but ultimately, I end up putting in number 2, and that for me is the biggest surprise new show, I think, of this entire season, and that, of course, is...
We're gonna have to stay a little longer. It is about coming home.
I'm out here defending my neighborhood, all right? What is this, you doing Chola 101?
And it's about women.
I support any way you want to identify.
I don't identify as anything, I'm just me.
Look, I know I've said there's a lot of shows that definitely did surprise me, but it's really true when I say that I did not expect, when this show was initially premiering, that Vita would be on my top 5 best summer shows, but that is absolutely the case. I mean, I thought for sure that Sweet Bitter would be the stronger show, but it turned out to be the other way around, and honestly, it's all the better for it, because Vita is one of the best original shows that I think stars really needed, that we didn't really realize that they needed. It was just such a great show of, sure, telling a familiar story about grief and these two sisters, but also showing a lot of problems going on in their town with gentrification and things with how people are treating them kind of being outsiders because they were outside of, they were outside of their, country for a while and things like that, but also having some incredible talent. I mean, just the acting in the show. Michelle Prada, she's unfortunately not going to get recognized, I think, but she absolutely does deserve it. I think her work in general was just extraordinary. I mean, the entire cast was so great here, but it also wasn't afraid to dive into some really heavy-handed topics, but it never tries to get too overly sentimental. It told a very straightforward story, and I think that really is attributed by the amazing directing by Tanya Sriracha. You could tell it a personal connection to this series. Like I said, this really turned out to be the show that stars didn't know they needed, and I think really is going to benefit them overall. I'm so happy it was renewed for a second season. I can't wait to see where they go. Vita was just a show that from the first episode, I fell in love with it, and it just got better and better from there. It's one of those shows where I couldn't wait to watch it every single time. Even though it was 6 episodes long, I think they were still able to tell a very compelling and relevant story that was equally just as emotional as it is important. Vita absolutely is the show that again, a lot of people didn't see, but definitely deserves to be number 2 for that reason. Check out the show immediately if you haven't. It is truly spectacular. So, of course, now, guys, we do get to the number 1 show of summer 2018. Now, I know this is going to be very predictable for some, but ultimately, it ended up being Sharp Objects absolutely delivered. This was another show that I was just hyped out of my mind for. I mean, John Mark Valet involved in a limited series in HBO. It went so well last time, and it definitely did not disappoint her. And while he wasn't the creative, the creative force with this show, he wasn't for Big Little Lies either, but he was able to retain that same sort of spirit for Big Little Lies and just deepen it and make it so much darker, to the point where every episode made you feel very uncomfortable. Sharp Objects gave me this rare feeling that I just don't get when watching a show. It just made me feel very sort of uncomfortable and very sort of, but also very entranced in the world. It was one of those things where, sure, it's very dark subject matter, and it is stuff that is very hard to watch and listen to, but at the same time, it's presented so well that you just can't help but look away. It features one of Amy Adams', I think, best performances that she's ever given as Camille Preaker, and it's telling a story that does not at all play out the way you really think it does. It's one of those shows where it really does treat you like you're smart. It gives you a lot of intricate details, and it doesn't always tell you everything that's going on. It doesn't necessarily give you what you wanted, but it gives you what you needed, and I think they did an incredible job with that. Had a very good understanding of not trying to spoon-feed everything to its audience, and that is definitely one of its biggest strengths. The cinematography here is just immaculate. It's some of the best I've seen on TV, movies, you name it. It was just incredible. It was 8 episodes, but those 8 episodes really did fly by for me. I heard a lot of people say the show really did drag, and I would highly disagree. I think it honestly really needed those 8 episodes because it really did heighten the tension and really deepen the characters in a way that I think a movie truly couldn't. It's one of the best limited series that HBO, I think, has ever done. It was easily the show that when it came on, I was just the most excited looking forward. I wouldn't say excited because, again, it's not necessarily a show that you are like hyped to watch every single week, but you just can't help but get so involved in what's going on. It was a show that I always had conversations with my friend about, good friend Jackson Fulcher was watching the show as well, and we talked about a lot. It got us to theorize. It got us to start a conversation. I really do love shows like that. It was a very compelling mystery, but also a really great character study of someone who is very damaged and who has gone through a lot of abuse and hasn't really felt like she has a purpose in the world, and seeing if she really is able to turn her life around and, accomplish something. And I think they just did a really great job with that overall. It's another big hit from HBO, and it absolutely is the best show of the summer. Sharp Objects, for all of those reasons, is absolutely number 1. And with that, guys, that's it. I know that there wasn't a lot to get into with this video. I know you guys are probably expecting more, but like I said, I just unfortunately was not able to watch as much. I will be finishing those shows that I did allude to. I'm going to finish Better Call Saul. I'm going to finish The Sinner. I've also watched Luke Cage. I got to finish that as well. Disenchantment, I know I got to finish. There are quite a few shows that I do still need to finish. But either way, I figured that I couldn't do a top 10 most anticipated of the fall without doing this video. But that's really it for my top 5 best summer shows of 2018. Let me know what shows you guys really enjoyed throughout the summer. If there's any that I didn't get to watch, just recommend them to me and I'll try my best to get to it. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in my next video and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.